So I grew up in a city called Aarhus, which is Denmark's second largest city. I guess in a Chinese context, large is relative. It's a 300,000 people city, so even if it's Denmark's largest city, it's still relatively small in an international perspective. Regardless, it's a city very close to the water. We have good forest, a lot of recreational areas. I'm a passionate runner and I enjoy running in this area very close to where I live. It has a university and a couple of really good engineering schools as well. And it has one of the biggest hospitals in the country actually, where a lot of doctors and research is going on. So all in all, it's actually a really cool city. So I used this city and the university here to get a master degree in electronics. And after starting, my first engineering job in parallel during evenings and the weekends, I actually took another university degree from a business college we have. So I have a university degree as well in management and organization. Music and audio has always taken up a lot of space in my life, a lot of time. I started playing piano as a 6 year old and I was able to play it and read the notes before I started school. When I was 10, I built my first speaker system. I even started building amplifiers, simple amplifiers. So I continued. The speakers got bigger and bigger. The amplifiers got bigger and bigger. So my parents were happy in the beginning and not so happy later because I was able to play some really, really loud music in my room. Really loud. And it just continued, after being educated and working a couple of years as a consultant for different Danish companies. I got into a big Danish speaker company called Yamo, one of the very few worldwide brands. I think it's called Simbao in China, and it still exists. And for me, it was like just having fun all day long. We did a lot of nice products and a lot of really, really good speakers at decent price levels as well. So I just continued doing that and eventually found my way into Opalum, where I am today. So the way I got into Opalum is a story about this young guy, Per, starting a company in Sweden with really advanced acoustic technology. And Per also wanted, the founder also wanted to build a new speaker brand. At that time, he had a small board built of people from the investment community. He needed some people with audio knowledge and speaker business knowledge. So he asked me if I wanted to join the board. And that was the way I started with Opalum as a board member. My working days really vary a lot. It can be everything from boring office work like working with the financial numbers and working with the bookkeeper. And I would say the best days I have, the most fun days, are when I get to listen to a product we're developing the first time, hooking it up, adding our technology to it, listening to the first music tracks, and then starting working with fine tuning the voice so it ends up sounding like it's supposed to sound and like we expected it to sound. That work is really, really motivating. Um, Actually, also, I would say the first part of doing design work, when we look at a product design and calculate how many drivers are we going to use, what kind of acoustic design would be the optimal for this. That's also really good because you do all the planning and then you hope for the best the day that you turn it on, and usually we succeed, and that's always rewarding. Opelum was founded 7 years ago by a Swedish guy called Per. Per studied at the university in Linköping, and his main thesis was about acoustic. and enhanced acoustics. He had an algorithm that allowed you to take any acoustic system, do measurements on it, feed it these measurements through an algorithm, and create almost an inverse filter that, in combination with the system you were measuring, created a totally linear and flat frequency response from this system. So in essence, you could take a bad acoustic system and you could cure it with this algorithm. This algorithm later was patented as the technology we have and still use today, called Actisonic. All our flat wall-mounted speakers are using this technology in order for them to create some really astonishing sound that's much better than you would usually be able to get out of a small, thin system like that. So Per found investors and he wanted to build a bigger company with more audio technologies, and he also wanted to create a new speaker brand. So with proper investments, he started doing that. That's also how we founded the Danish branch that is only supposed to work with real speakers, all speakers based on this fantastic technology. Opellum is working with two things. One part of our business is working with the technology. It has its own technology roadmap, and it constantly develops new audio related technologies. Everything is centered around improving acoustic performance, mostly of what I would call constrained environments, meaning small systems or flat systems or thin systems, all the systems that has an acoustic challenge. The other part of Opellum is the part I'm responsible for, which is the business we have in Denmark. This is a speaker company, so we develop commercial speakers, speakers you would see in high-styled living rooms, really thin, the world's thinnest on-wall speakers, for example. And because of the technology we have, all these speakers have a really high acoustic performance, especially considering that they are, in essence, design speakers. In addition to this, over the last couple of years, we have started working with different other companies as an acoustic partner, doing what you could call application speakers. For example, we have the best-selling kitchen speaker in Europe right now, which is a dedicated kitchen speaker designed so it matches and integrates with a kitchen and still has a fantastic sound performance. This speaker is sold through 15 of Europe's biggest kitchen manufacturers. So if you go into a kitchen store in England, UK, for example, the Magnet kitchen brand, and you want to buy a kitchen, the guy would ask you, shouldn't we add sound to your kitchen? And that sound would be coming from Opellum. Opellum is really special because we have these patents and these technologies that no one else have. By combining these and using them for a speaker application, regardless of being a small system in a mobile phone or a larger hi-fi high-end system, the result is so amazing compared to not using these technologies that once you hear it, you simply just need to have these technologies. So it's been a fantastic 5 years to see these technologies being developed and also see how they are being used by several manufacturers all over the world, including some of the world's biggest mobile phone manufacturers. One of our latest developed technology building blocks is the one we call Protect. And when you combine Protect with our Actisonic technology, you really have a powerful technology package for small mobile phones or smartphones. If you combine these two technologies, you have a really clear audio performance, and at the same time you have a mobile phone that can play extremely loud compared to the relatively small size its acoustic system has. And Cirrus Logic, which is a really big American chip manufacturer from Austin, has launched a new range of high-powered Class D amplifiers for mobile use. And when you take one of these small Class D amplifiers and combine it with our Opalum's audio technology, you have a really strong package and an extremely good competitive advantage. Actually, the advantage is so big that Cirrus Logic has this summer 2015 purchased our entire technology development group that was sitting in Stockholm in Sweden. And we can only acknowledge this as a proof of how valuable our technology is. We still have all the technology, building blocks, all the source code, and we are using that to develop bigger sized speakers, mid-sized speakers, and big high-end hi-fi speakers. But for now and going forward, mobile phones and our technology in mobile phones and tablets will be coming from Cirrus Logic, but it's still Opalum technology. It's actually really difficult for a Scandinavian guy to try to explain what it is to be Scandinavian. It's like asking a fish, how does it feel to be wet? The fish wouldn't know, right? I will try anyway. The Scandinavian general is characterized by having no poverty. We have really high social benefits, and we have total free choice of education. If you want to be a doctor and you have the skills to do it, you choose the education and you'll become a doctor. The government pays. We also have the highest tax rate in the world in Denmark. At the same time, year after year, there is a research going on, and the result always shows that Denmark has the happiest people in the world, which feels a bit strange to know as a Danish guy, but apparently that's the way it is. So it's a cold up here. During winter we have only 5 hours of daylight during the day, and you can't grow anything during fall and winter, and that also influences the way we think, our ability to plan. We simply need to plan. If we don't plan during summer and fall, we don't have any food during winter. Yeah, today we do, but in the old days we didn't. So if you were not able to plan and harvest during fall and put it somewhere so you had something to eat during winter, you didn't have any food. So it's very embedded into the way we think that we need to plan ahead, and we need to think not only about today or tomorrow, but also next week, next month, and next season. Yeah, what is Scandinavian design and aesthetics? That's a complex question, and I would like to go back to the fact that during winter we have almost no daylight during the day. So you would often have days where we have 5 hours of daylight if we're lucky and the sun is there, and the rest of the day it's dark. That fact has had an extremely big impact on the way we decorate our interiors in our houses, and in general also the way our interior design looks. Since we have this very limited hours of daylight, we need to make use of the daylight when it's there. So you would often see a Scandinavian kitchen or a Scandinavian living room make use of, I wouldn't say bright colors, but light colors like white or almost white, and not a lot of ornamentation. So you get this elegant, sleek design, and it's light in every way, not only light as opposed to dark, but also looks light as opposed to heavy. Because when you get the daylight, when the sun shines and it gets through your windows, you really want your living room or your kitchen to light up and embrace that light and keep it as long as it's there. And that has had an extremely big impact on all our design. So every time you see something that people would say, this looks really Scandinavian, um, it has this light feeling about it, and also this, I would call it lack of ornamentation. There's not a lot of strange details on it, like you would, for example, see in Southern Europe or also US-based design, and it always has this light feeling. So much of that can be related to the fact that we have such a small amount of daylight during winter. Then add to that that we have a long tradition for manufacturing furniture. Remember that we have a lot of forest in Denmark, and we have a lot of wood. So do they in Sweden and Norway and Finland. So you have the material, and you use the trees to make some really nice furniture, and you have to be very skilled in the manufacturing process in order to convert a tree to a chair that looks really Scandinavian. So it's extremely important to keep in mind that the lack of light has a very big influence on our way of thinking about design, and also that we have so much wood and trees around us that we have always used that to create and execute our designs. Yeah, again, it's a bit difficult to tell or explain how it does feel indeed to be a Scandinavian guy, and how it does feel to be in the Scandinavian society. But I would say that in general, it's a stable society, and we are also, as the research shows, the world's happiest people. At least if you look at the Danish people. And I think it's true. We don't have any poverty. If someone is sick or needs a hospital, there's always a hospital or a doctor in the neighborhood that you're connected to. It doesn't cost anything. It's a part of the way we live and the part of the way we pay taxes. We have the highest tax rate in the world, but you also get the social benefits back. For me, the most important thing in my life has been the fact that I had the ability to choose whatever education I wanted. I did good in school, which meant that, well, what do you want to be? And I wanted to be an engineer, and I wanted to work with management, and I just chose the educations I wanted, out of pure own interest and own motivation. And it feels like it's just great to know that I can also have my children choose whatever they want. So in that regard, it's nice, and we don't have any enemies or any wars going on. So it is a stable country. Sometimes it feels a bit like, I would also say, like a closed society, because it feels like we're doing fine, and I really hope that the world around us also sees that we like to think about the poor people in Africa, and whoever is also suffering all around the world. So it feels a bit strange to know that at some point in time, not so far back in history, we had 50 active speaker companies in Denmark. And Denmark is an extremely small country. So how is it that 50 speaker companies could do good business, sell speakers all over the world, and have this large concentration of speaker people and audio people? Actually, the reason is that if you go back and think about how the first speakers looked, it was a wooden box, and then it has some audio stuff inside. So how do you get a good wooden box that looks good and has a good assembly, is airtight, and still looks nice when you put it in a living room? Well, you need to go to someone that knows how to work with wood. And what is it Denmark is known for? It's known for the design based on wood, chairs, tables, and so on, from a long tradition of being able to craft and have the craftsmanship that allows you to do really nice stuff from a tree, basically. So you had this capability and this competence already in Denmark, a lot of wooden factories with really high skills. At the same time, for some reason, especially in Copenhagen at the Technical University, a lot of people studied the acoustics and the physics of acoustics. And for some reason, that just developed. So it's said that these two parts of Denmark, the wooden manufacturing companies, met with the acoustic environment, and these guys kind of had this thing saying, wow, if we use our competences and our capabilities together, we must be the perfect guys to do really, really good speakers. And so it just happened. Every time a new speaker company opened, they did some really cool products. They were sold right away. And 1 week after, you would have another guy opening a speaker company because they always had success. So that's really the reason that we have so much audio in Denmark, and we have way more audio people and speaker companies than really would be normal if you consider that we're only 5.5 million people in Denmark. But the reason is simply that we had all the craftsmanship that was needed, especially the wooden craftsmanship.